Welcome traders to Advanced Target Taking Multiple Targets number 2. So in this video we're going to discuss 3 other ways to take multiple targets with something called fixed multiple targets instead of managing the position. The reason I want to do this video is because I understand that not everyone is going to have the capability of being able to sit behind their computer on, let's say, an hourly chart or even a 15-minute chart and manage that position all the way down to the next level of structure they're looking at for potential second targets, or manage the position down to wherever they're looking for those second targets to come off at. So for that reason, I'm going to show you guys some techniques you can use in order to take 2 targets but to do something called fixed secondary targets. In order to create fixed secondary targets, there are 3 different options we have. The first is going to be very similar to the last video and very similar to the way that I take targets, and that's by looking for major levels of structure, again out on that daily chart. If we're trading on the 4-hour time frame, if you're trading on a 1 hour, you might want to look back at a 4-hour chart. If you're trading on a day trading time frame like a 15-minute, you may want to look back on an hourly chart for those major levels of structure, but the same rules apply looking for levels of structure that have been tested multiple times. So once we look out on that daily chart, we've already pointed this out from the last video, but we'll do it once more. Going out to a daily chart, finding that level of structure that's been tested multiple times, which is what we have here. Again, 3 different support bounces from this level. This is the same trade we were looking at in the last video, guys. Going down to our 4-hour time frame, once we've pointed that out, the fixed way of taking secondary targets is just by having a limit order set at this exact position. Once we draw that line on for our daily level of structure, putting a limit order there for our second targets. That is how we would use structure in order to place a fixed secondary target. And what you would do is, once hitting your first target, let's say you're set at a 1-to-1, you would just move that stop loss to break even on the second part of the position, take off your first position completely for a win of a 1-to-1 risk reward, and again have that second target just fixed down here with the limit order at that level of structure. This takes away a lot of the complication of managing the position on the way down on the smaller time frame, and it takes away the complication of having to see some type of entry reason right here at our daily level of structure before being able to exit the trade. So this obviously is much more simple to implement into your trading and can be a great benefit as well. So that's how we would do fixed secondary targets using structure. There are a couple of other ways to use fixed secondary targets that we're also going to be talking about in this video. This is going to be a pretty short video, guys. This is not going to be super complicated information going forward, so I'm going to run through this rather quickly. The second way would be to use a fixed risk to reward ratio. What do I mean by that? Here we have a 1-to-1 risk reward on our first position. What you could do is take this second position and set it at a fixed 2-to-1 risk reward. You could say, okay, I want at least a 1-to-1 risk reward on the first part of my position, and I want at least a 2-to-1 risk reward on the second part of my position. And you could trade like that every single time. Of course, guys, do not just start trading these. Go through the market and test these different ways of taking targets before you implement them into your trading. This would be another way to use fixed targets. You could say I want a 2-to-1. You could go as far as to say I want a 3, 4, 5-to-1 risk reward on the second part of that position. Once you hit your first targets, moving your stop loss to break even, and then waiting to see if those next targets get filled. So we've already discussed using structure, major structure, as a fixed secondary target. We've now discussed using a fixed risk to reward ratio, which is something you can do as well. And now let's talk about actually using Fibonacci. We haven't discussed Fibonacci yet in the course. We may a little later on here in the advanced phase, but one thing I do like using Fibonacci retracements and extensions for is target taking, especially if I'm not going to be managing the position on the way down. What you would be doing when using Fibonacci extensions in order to place targets is looking at your previous swing high. This was our swing high to swing low move before the pullback and our entry. Looking at that swing high to swing low move, we would take a Fibonacci extension tool from swing high down to swing low, back up to the swing high, and you could place your targets accordingly. Here, as you can see, that would not have given us much of a better target to, but that will be the case sometimes when using Fibonacci extensions to place secondary targets, if you want to place a secondary target at the 1.618 extension. So that's an option as well, using Fibonacci extensions, and those are the 3 different ways to set fixed secondary targets without having to manage the position on the way down. And there's a few different options for you to go out and test in order to see which works best for your personal trading style and which you'd like to implement into your own personal trading plan. So that's the different ways of taking multiple targets. In the next video, we're going to be talking about more advanced ways to take single targets for those of you who would not like to take multiple targets but would still like the benefit of having more than a one-to-one risk reward. We'll talk about that. Of course, doing so will result in less of a winning percentage with any strategy that you use, but at the same time, the risk reward will be greater, and it's really up to you and your personal trading style that determines whether or not this type of target taking is going to be beneficial for your trading. So let's go ahead and move on to the next video. I'll see you guys there.